Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
The air was thick with humidity, and the moon above Old Alton Bridge looked like it was trying to hide behind the clouds, as if it was waiting for the events that were about to unfold. Jenna didn't want to be there, but it was Luke's last weekend before leaving for college, and stupid dares, well, they were sort of the tradition. So there she was, standing in the middle of the bridge at 1:03 a.m., flashlight in one hand, phone in the other, while the rest of the group was laughing behind her, like this was all just some harmless rite of passage. "You gotta knock 3 times and say his name," Luke called out. "That's the deal." Jenna rolled her eyes, but knocked anyway. 3 sharp raps on the rusted rail. "Goatman," she said. "Goatman, Goatman." Nothing. The others groaned. Someone tossed an empty beer can. It clattered on the wood, echoing longer than it should have. Then came the smell, like old meat left out in the sun. The laughter stopped. Jenna turned around to say something, but the bridge was empty. No Luke, no friends, just the sound of water moving slowly beneath her, and the sudden, sharp clink of metal behind her, like hooves on iron. She backed away, flashlight trembling in her grip, trying to call out, but her voice wouldn't come. Her throat felt too tight. Something moved at the edge of the trees. A shape. It was tall. It was wrong. She only saw it for a second, but it was enough. The curve of horns, the glint of red eyes, and that awful smile that seemed to stretch across an entire face. The next thing she remembered was waking up in the middle of the road 2 miles away, barefoot, scratched up, and her phone dead. No memory of how she got there. But when she finally made it home, there was a voicemail on her phone. It was time-stamped at 1:10 a.m. It was just breathing, slow, wet, and not hers. I'm Rob Coakley, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, the Goatman's Bridge.
What's going on, folks? Welcome into Hometown Ghost Stories. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I am joined by the one and only Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
We have a story tonight to tell you that is terrifying. It's ghostly. It's cryptid. It's a bunch of different things. You mix it in a pot. You get a bridge in there. And we talk about the Goatman's Bridge.
Speaking of goats, we also have Dave. I was referring to like the greatest of all time. It was a compliment, but you know, you went full goat, and that's fine.
You never go full goat, Dave.
Sorry. Perfect.
Really
Well,
wanted to demonstrate how goatly I
That is a remarkable goat impression. So I will say I'm glad we finally. It took us 100 and I don't know how many episodes, but you know we got into it. Finally got Dave's goat impression.
Thank you.
And it was spot on.
very reminiscent of Jim Brewer back in the day.
Great reference. Hilarious. Might be the funniest goat man of all time.
Forgotten, I feel like it doesn't, like you never see clips of that anymore.
Some say for goatin.
Oh no. That's going to do it for this episode of Hometown,
Goat stories.
Hometown Goat Stories. But yes, we're going to be talking about the Goatman's Bridge.
Oh, why wait? Let's goat right into it.
This is down in Denton, Texas. So
Cool.
just off the beaten path in Denton, Texas, there's a bridge that's outlived the town it once connected. Hidden by overgrowth and shadowed by time, the old Alton Bridge stretches across a murky creek, a rusting skeleton of iron and timber that groans under the weight of its own legend. Locals call it the Goatman's Bridge. In the daylight, it looks like a relic, quaint, almost picturesque. But once the sun sets, it becomes something else, a boundary, a threshold, the kind of place where headlights flicker, where cell phones die, and where stories, some too strange to believe, start to sound a little too real. The legend of Goatman's Bridge didn't begin with the ghosts. It began with a man.
Damn it. I thought you were going to say it didn't begin with the ghosts. It began with the goats.
That would have been a great line.
Well, it kind of does. It kind of does. Back in the night,
I feel like you should change that line to say that, though.
I can't do it. It's too late. We've already recorded it, Jesse.
I don't think it is too late. I think that's a great line, and you're missing an opportunity here.
No, we never edit anything. Everything you guys get is always like unadulterated.
Yeah, completely straight up. We never mess up.
That's true.
That's what some people would say. Back in the 1930s, long after the nearby town of Alton had crumbled into obscurity, a black goat farmer named Oscar Washburn made quite a name for himself on the outskirts of Denton. He was known as an...
Already had quite a name for himself. Oscar Washburn.
It's a hell of a name. He was known as an honest businessman. He sold meat, milk, hides, and he did well for himself. So well, in fact, that he put up a handmade sign at the entrance to the bridge to guide new customers. It read... What did it read? Tell me.
Welcome to Alton.
Come on in, new customers.
It read, "This way to the Goatman."
All right.
It was meant to be simple advertising. Instead, it became a death sentence. Not everyone in town appreciated the sight of a successful black man, especially in Jim Crow era Texas. One night, a group of Klansmen came for him. They stormed his home, dragged him from his family, and brought him to the bridge. They put a noose around his neck and threw him over the edge. But when they looked down, Oscar Washburn was gone. The rope was snapped. The body had vanished. Panic turned to rage. Thinking he had somehow escaped, they returned to his homestead and burned it to the ground. His wife and children, trapped inside, perished in the flames. No body was ever found. No justice ever came. But something stayed behind. And that's when the stories began. So, before we get into some of the stories, I really try to dive into and I'm going to say this up front, there's a million different variations of this story. So if you've heard this story before, you might have heard it slightly different, or you might have heard it the way I just told it. There's a few different ways this story's been told, a few different of the legends that have happened, a few different hauntings that have happened at this bridge. But it all sort of centers around this man, Oscar Washburn. He was the one that they say they came for. They took him. They tried to kill him, killed his family. And I was trying to find, because this was in the 1930s, if I could like track down a news story or something on this. But people that have done the research on this, they can't find the actual, like anything that actually shows that Oscar lived or didn't live, if he was a real person or not. But that doesn't mean that he didn't live. And some of the things I found out, which were just shocking as I went through this case, is over 3,600 people were lynched in America up until the year like 1968.
68, that's crazy.
I remember that, like, I could spitball off that year because I'm like, my mom was born in 1966. So like they were still lynching people while my mom was alive, which is just...
Yeah, my dad was approaching middle school. This was not that long ago. That's crazy. And it's also crazy because it's like even like post Civil Rights Act.
Right.
It's like 3 years after that. So that's nuts. Right.
So it's just insane. And the numbers behind the lynchings are like disproportionate. I actually was shocked that they hung any, like I knew they lynched like white prisoners, but of that 3,600, over 2,000 were black. It was like a little over 1,000 that were white. But the problem is a lot of the people that were black that were hanged, there was no family record of them because nobody could read or write in their families. And it caused like a lot of family histories to be destroyed because nothing was ever written down. And obviously the people that were committing the crimes weren't writing down who they came and killed and stuff like that, which is like, so it's overall terrible thing, destroys family legacies. You lose out on tons of history of families. Like, it's terrible. So a lot of people that were lynched, we don't even know who they were.
So the number, that 3,600 figure, might actually even be bigger, right?
Probably is bigger because they probably weren't all reported. But sometimes it was like this huge event. I was reading about one story where this one 17-year-old kid, he was accused of killing this white woman with a hammer. This kid, he had mental issues. He worked either on her farm or near her farm. They did the standard thing where they pulled him into a room. They made him sign a confession. He didn't know how to read or write. He signed the confession with an X. As soon as he did that, a lynch mob of over 1,000, it might have even been 10,000 people, came, took him to a tree, lit him on fire, and set him on fire, which is just crazy. And nobody was ever arrested or anything.
That's insane. And he probably didn't do it.
He probably didn't do it.
It was probably the husband who killed his own wife, then blamed it on the illiterate farmhand, and then they just had because like these lynch mobs this was kind of what they would do. Very rarely was it a just cause, right? It was usually used as a reason to get rid of somebody inconvenient.
Yeah, someone inconvenient and just a way to take the law into their own hands. And it was against the law, just nobody ever did anything. The law just usually turned a blind eye. And we've covered stories where there were some really smart cops that would sneak these prisoners out without anyone knowing to save their lives, essentially, to make sure that proper justice was done, that they actually got their trial and stuff. So shout out to those police officers that were able to do that. But yeah, overall, man, it's just scary that was just something that, could be done on a whim and nobody was ever held accountable for it at all.
Agreed.
Including the Goatman, the poor Goatman.
Yeah, including the poor Goatman. So what started happening at the Goatman's Bridge after this? Well, it started off as reports of whispers, of hoof prints on the bridge, of animal carcasses found mutilated in the woods nearby, strange lights, disembodied growls. Some claim to see a dark figure with glowing red eyes lurking just past the tree line. Over time, the figure became something more than a man. Twisted, wrong. A half goat, half human beast that stalked the bridge at night, guarding it like a gatekeeper to the other side. People started calling it the Goatman. And as the decades passed, the legend only grew. Visitors who come to the bridge today, whether they're ghost hunters or thrill-seeking teens, often report the same things. Flickering flashlights, the sound of hooves on steel, a foul stench like rotting meat that rolls in out of nowhere. Some say they feel watched. Others say they've been touched, scratched, or even pushed.
I wonder if the smells of rotting meat rolling in would coincide with the dead animal carcasses found in the woods nearby.
Good point. It could be that. I sort of thought maybe that was the smell of the Goatman. And I also thought maybe it's because that's what he sold when he was alive. Was he actually sold like really good meats that people liked. And because his life was taken, everything has just turned to rot, basically. So sort of comes along with him that way. More than one person has claimed that if you stand on the bridge after midnight and call out to the Goatman, something answers. There are even tales of disappearances. People who wandered too far off from the trail. People who went alone and never came back. So one thing I found interesting with this particular story is part of the legend is the Goatman does not mess with everybody, allegedly. It targets very specific people, and it targets the descendants of Klans members. So that is part of the legend of the Goatman, is that it will not mess with everybody, it will not attack everybody, it will not haunt everybody. but it's really sort of a tale of vengeance on descendants more so than anything. So that's an interesting point to this particular story.
Sounds like a curse.
Right. Definitely sounds like a curse.
Mm-hmm.
One story tells of a woman who crossed a bridge on foot and woke up hours later in the woods, barefoot, her phone destroyed, her arms covered in bruises she couldn't explain, and she had no memory of what happened in between. And that was her just like crossing the bridge, and it just like blacked out like that.
That's weird.
And woke up hours later in the woods, just not knowing where she was, which is terrifying, dude. Like,
was that the instance from the opening ghost story?
no, it's the inspiration for it for sure. Was weird. That one.
Very weird.
Yeah. Skeptics chalk it up to the urban legend, imagination, mass hysteria, which I love. I love that is like, as soon as something happens, everyone's like, oh, mass hysteria. Like it's a thing that happens all the time, right?
Yeah, like it isn't an actual specific thing that, but it's like just to ascribe mass hysteria to everything that you think is weird is dumb, because mass hysteria is a real thing and it happens for a reason. It's not like this random collection of people that think they see, like it's more like I think it's more credible to say it might be something more like pareidolia, right? Like you're there kind of, you're seeing what you want to see because you know the backstory. Mass hysteria is a very specific thing that doesn't seem to make any sense in this situation.
Yeah, and I mean, like, I guess it makes sense in some of the situations of stuff that we've talked about before, but it just feels like a lazy answer sometimes, like to people trying to debunk something. And I'm not saying that this is real or isn't real, but what I'm saying is like mass hysteria as an answer feels like an absolute cop out sometimes. Just throwing, like, the Goatman's just as real as mass hysteria is what I would say.
Can you elaborate on that last? You said that the Goatman is just as real as mass hysteria. Are you saying that mass hysteria is not a thing?
No, I'm saying mass hysteria is a thing. I understand that it's a thing, but when I just think that some cases like mass hysteria is just such a cop out that it's unlikely. It's just as likely as the Goatman because it just, there's no reasoning behind it. Like you're just saying a thing, right? You're just sometimes saying a thing with, because how does mass hysteria work here? Because it's different tales of people coming at different times.
Right. That's what I was saying, is it doesn't make sense here. Like it makes sense in a situation where you have like a family that are all super stressed out because of someone thinks something's going on, or maybe something is going on, and now they're all feeding off each other. And they all thinking that's mass hysteria, right?
Right.
And this just isn't.
Yeah. So the skeptics, they also do not like to linger here too long, because beneath the myth is something real. The bridge still stands. The violence still most likely happened. And in places like this, places soaked in trauma, where the earth itself remembers what people try to forget, ghosts don't always look the way we expect them to. Sometimes they wear horns.
Sometimes they look like goat human hybrids.
Yeah, which is like it's one of those things that's funny at first. Like a Goatman is haha, like funny, and then you're like, a ghostly human goat hybrid is something that I do not want to actually come across.
Like
especially with like the glowing red eyes, and goats are affiliated with demons and demonic activity, the smell of rotten meat, like everything seems to be pointing towards demonic activity on this bridge. And when something this dark happened, that could lead to something negative being spawned over there, or at least attracting something negative to be there. I don't think the man himself turned into a demon, but that doesn't mean that because of all the negative activity and the people that go there and feed into this story and keep this story alive, then it could definitely be something demonic there.
Yeah.
Right. Like just hearing the word Goatman sounds silly, but now picture one standing in the room in the dark next to you while you sleep.
Yeah, we don't
With
like that.
And like Jesse said, with the red eyes just glaring down at you.
Yeah. Goats are scary looking animals. Like they're cool. I actually used to have a couple of goats. They're pretty nice, but they're just, for something about them, the way their eyes look and the horns, they look like Satan.
Yeah.
They look like the fucking devil. Like
Yeah.
terrifying creatures.
and they just yell the whole time. That's what goats do. They just continuously yell.
They did. Jesse, do you remember Eugene, the goat that we had growing up?
I do.
Yeah, we had this little goat house that he would, I'd come home from school or work, wherever I was, and we'd just hear this like, in the backyard. And I'd go around the backyard and we just see Eugene would just be standing on top of his goat house screaming. And it was horrifying.
And now Dave does that every time he gets home from work. He just climbs up on his roof and just starts screaming.
Just start bleeding into the sun.
It's perfectly normal behavior.
Totally normal.
So this is a place that people go to try to capture EVPs and search for the Goatman. It's a really creepy looking bridge overall. Maybe I should pull up a picture real quick.
Yeah, let's look at it. Let's have a look. The Goatman Bridge. Because it sounds like actually, I forget whether it was in your opening ghost story or when you first started the narrative of the story that you're telling. You described the bridge as a bridge that holds all the weight of the legend. I thought that was actually really nicely worded. I would like to see the bridge.
So this is the Goatman Bridge. I'm going to show it to you right now.
Yep.
Very overgrown, just like you described it. For audio listeners, it looks like a rusty bridge. It looks like something you probably wouldn't want to drive across because it does not look like... It looks really flimsy.
I don't think it's from what I'm looking at, I don't even know if you can drive a car across it. If you can, it's a one car because it's really skinny.
Yeah, it looks like could just be like a footbridge. It looks big to be a footbridge, to be for sure. It's definitely not a footbridge.
It's not made out of feet.
It's definitely not made out of feet, is what I would say. Let me see if I can.
Looks like a train bridge, honestly.
I didn't see any trains.
No, I mean it was made out of trains.
Oh, okay. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, that's for a car.
Yeah, single car bridge.
Yeah.
For
so
sure.
for audio listeners, this is a different point of view. Still very wonky, but wooden bridge for the road part of it. I don't even know, how would you describe that? Yeah. And but it's got like looks like iron for the side rails and the top.
Probably steel.
Yeah, it's got the dead trees around it. I mean, it looks probably steel. You're probably right about that. It does look creepy. It looks haunted.
Yeah, definitely wouldn't want to end up there on my... I would never drive across this thing. If you drive across this thing, you're psycho. I can't imagine it's accessible by car anymore. There's no way they use this to drive across. This is clearly...
It looks abandoned.
Yeah. I mean, look at that lip at the bottom here.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's no way you're driving across this thing. So that's the Goatman Bridge. But yeah, people go there. They try to summon the Goatman. They try to get EVPs. They try to get pictures. If it's a, I mean, I think this is more a ghost story than a cryptid story. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I could agree with that.
so
Feels like more of a ghost, like rides the line of like ghost / curse. Both.
Yeah.
Definitely
Goat
not
story. Not ghost story. Goat story.
ghost.
ghost, a ghost story.
How many goats is there?
What would the plural of ghost be?
Ghosted.
Ghosts.
Gites.
Yeah, that's what he's doing when he takes the people. He makes them unconscious and drops them off somewhere. He's ghosting them.
Good job, Rob.
Did it. We nailed it. Hells yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, I thought that this was a really, I mean, obviously a very sad story, but a very creepy one, different than other stuff that we've covered before. So I wanted to cover it. All right, gentlemen. Any closing thoughts on the Goatman's Bridge?
I'd visit here.
Oh, I'd definitely visit. I think that this would be a good spot to investigate. It sounds like there's a lot of activity on this bridge. It sounds like there's a lot of reason for there to be a haunting. And even if it's, if it's legend, then that's one thing. But if the actual history is something that tracks, then this could be a severely haunted area. And I think put it on the list.
Yeah, but it doesn't have to track either. I mean, look at our success with investigating a bridge that we couldn't make sure that the history matched the story when we went to Emily's bridge. We've had success at bridge investigations before. I would love to do another one. And this one would not be 12 degrees outside because it's down in Texas.
This is true. This is true. Let's not do it anytime in the near future, though. Let's wait a few months at least.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have a lot that we need to do in Texas still that we need to actually go investigate.
It's the most haunted state in the country.
I don't believe it, but
That's what they say. There's a lot of state. It's big.
But we got to get to the Hill House at some point too down there. So a lot to do in Texas. Let us know what you think in the comments. Have you been to the Goatman's Bridge? Would you go? Does it sound more legend, or do you think that something ghostly is happening here? Let us know. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Or do you think something goatly is happening?
Definitely something goatly. That's going to do it for us. We'll catch you later. Peace.